Oh, negative, my favourite. Oh, why hello, I didn't see you there. My name is Jessabella and I'm going to be joining you for today's video instead of your regular host, who is otherwise preoccupied. Yes, today's video, as you've probably ascertained from the title, will be a list of Hallows Eve films to enjoy for those of you who are, shall we say, faint of heart. To those of you who are positively terrified of the monsters that lurk in the darkness, I'm going to be giving you a list of films that you can enjoy to your heart's content this Hallows Eve. Don't you fear, not a single film on this list will leave you with night terrors. Don't worry, my dear, you're safe in my hands. These hurt and are annoying, so it's not happening. I thought I could do this for the whole video. I literally can't. But hello. So I put in a lot of effort today because I thought that I would join in with the Halloween celebrations for once. I literally never do. But this year is the kind of year that you want to celebrate every single holiday that passes by. And since my birthday has already passed, I guess Halloween is what's left. So as Jezebella just said, today we're going to be talking about some Halloween films that those of us who are terrified of everything, literally everything, can enjoy no problem. Now for this list, I decided to pick out a selection of films from a range of different genres for you guys to enjoy this Halloween. But this video is pretty much just for fun. There's nothing too serious here. We won't be diving into too many spoilers for each of these films. It's just going to be a nice roundabout way of giving you guys a selection of films for you guys to enjoy this Halloween without feeling absolutely terrified and sacrificing at least a month's worth of sleep, because I'm not about that life. And I'm sure a lot of you guys aren't either. Before we dive into the list itself, just a friendly reminder that if you aren't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and make sure you turn on your notifications so that you can catch new uploads. I mean, I went through all of this hassle. So if you could just click that subscribe button and click that like button, that would be fabulous. I mean, I wouldn't want to sick Jezebel on you after all. For the first film that I'm going to be recommending, it's definitely off the beaten path, but I would very much argue that because of the characters that are involved in this film, it definitely fits within the season, whilst at the same time giving you guys something a bit more different, a bit more unique to check out during this Halloween season. The film that I think would be perfect for you guys to check out this Halloween is Warm Bodies. I absolutely love Warm Bodies. I think it's a great and underrated rom-com. This is a really cool story about a romance between a human girl and a zombie guy, portrayed brilliantly by Nicholas Hoult. I absolutely love the character of R. It's a somewhat obvious play on Romeo and Juliet because the guy's name starts with an R and the girl's name starts with a J, so it's very obvious in that way, but I still think it delivers brilliantly on the love story angle, whilst at the same time delivering on this very interesting setup of this world in which zombies are a thing. Zombies are roaming around and there are various types of zombies, there are various levels to it, but Nicholas Hoult's character of course isn't too far gone. He's still somewhat attractive as a zombie. Now for him to at least fall in love with Teresa Palmer's protagonist, then of course you have that Romeo and Juliet angle where their love is forbidden and so they have to fight. They have to fight to stay together despite the forces that are working against them. This is just a really cool film, and I think, like I said, it takes a different angle in terms of a Halloween-esque film, because whilst we still have the zombies and it's definitely something that fits into the season in that way, overall it's just a really cool romance, and like I said, a nice Romeo and Juliet inspired romance where the two leads actually have great chemistry, despite the fact that Nicholas Hoult for the majority of it is a mindless zombie, and his internal monologue in this film is absolutely amazing. You fall in love with him, you fall in love with his friends as well. The friendship that he has with that other zombie character is just perfect, but then of course when they come together, I think it is convincing, I think it is believable, because they do have that natural connection. Again, despite the fact that one of them is literally The Walking Dead. Now, because this is a video about Halloween films for those of us who are scared of everything, literally terrified of everything, I do feel a certain responsibility to warn you that there is the presence of these very far gone zombies, the ones who are just like basically skeletal and they're evil and they're really bad. They do look a little bit frightening. Like, I wouldn't say it's terrifying, it's not really that scary, but if you're really if you're really scared of everything, like literally you can't even see a skeleton, I would just warn you that they are present, so you can just look out for that. But for the most part, this film is not scary, and this is coming from me, like, it's not that bad. The next film on this list is yet another zombie film that has in fact been accredited with the resurgence of the subgenre itself, and that is Danny Boyle's 28 Days Later. Now this film, just like Warm Bodies, isn't strictly about zombies. It's not strictly about the monsters that roam the night. Instead, it focuses on the after effects of an apocalypse. Yes, we're living in a post-apocalyptic world where people were infected by a vicious virus, which but yes, in this world, some of the population were infected by this virus, which caused them to become zombies. And as for the others, they just moved. They left as soon as they possibly could. But this is a very interesting insight into what happens after we have the creation of these zombies. Some of them are still lurking around in the shadows, and we do see Cillian Murphy's main character interacting with some of them, fighting some of them off, and he manages to build a connection with the people that he meets along the way on his journey to find safety. Because this character, when we first meet him, has basically woken up from, I believe, a coma. He had no idea what had happened, and as the title insinuates, this is the portrayal of the events that occurred 28 days after the initial infection. So a lot has happened since, and he has to catch up with everything whilst at the same time fighting for his life. It is such a cool premise that is excellently executed by Danny Boyle, and on top of that, this film was written by Alex Garland, so you already know you're going to have a lot of intellectual analysis and a focus on the breakdown of society as a result of the spread of this virus and the consequential creation of zombies, like actual zombies, also at the same time giving us our much needed dose of kicking zombie ass. Another thing that I especially love about this film is just how authentically early 2000s British it is. I think the dirty, grimy Danny Boyle filmmaking style with the general aesthetic of the early 2000s in the UK fits perfectly with the zombie subgenre of film. For my next recommendation, we have a Halloween classic. This is a film that is by no means more obscure on a list of best Halloween films to watch, period, but it's just an added bonus that this film isn't particularly scary or frightening. You may have some strange dreams if you watch this one, especially right before going to bed, but I don't think it's going to leave you with any scary nightmares. And on top of that, you may also have a few songs that are stuck in your head for the next week. And I am of course talking about The Nightmare Before Christmas. This is a classic. This is a classic film. Wow, distinctive animation style as well as the distinctive characters that have become outright iconic at this point. Here we have a film that very much delves into an entirely different world, an entirely different type of storytelling where you have a mixture of a Christmas story as well as a Halloween story, but this is definitely a Halloween story, but that has themes of Christmas and themes of holidays and themes of belonging, which I'm sure we can all relate to right now. It also has some singing, as I alluded to earlier before. Some of these songs are so classic, so iconic that just the first few bars will have you singing the entirety of the song. And on top of that, you do have another love story for you romantics out there. It's definitely a mixture of different genres, and I think that's what makes this film so unique and what makes it really stand out in the sea, the ocean of Halloween-esque films. It's the fact that we have a mixture of so many different subgenres coming together to create this Halloween film. Plus on top of that, we have that Tim Burton style that is just so distinctive and so iconic that it creates this very timeless feel for this animated film. Although I would be remiss if I didn't mention that this film isn't strictly directed by Tim Burton. It was directed by Henry Selick, but because it's so rich with Tim Burton isms, it feels like a film that was directed by Tim Burton, and he was of course so involved in it anyways that it definitely has his signature on it. And once again, as someone who feels personally responsible for your sleep for the coming week, I will say that there are a couple of scenes that do feel genuinely spooky, but this is a kids film, and in fact I think this is the perfect kind of Halloween film to introduce to children, to introduce that sense of fear and spookiness without making them terrified. For my next suggestion, this is kind of a double bill. These are two films that I have watched so many times, especially as someone who was essentially raised by the Disney Channel. These are two films that I have seen so many times because they would be aired on the Disney Channel every single year during this season, and I absolutely loved them. I think they are the peak of Halloween films that are child friendly, because these films incorporate the Halloween isms that we want to see, the monsters, the ghouls, the creative prosthetics, whilst at the same time giving us amazing, memorable characters with great character dynamics and character arcs in their own right. And also you have the cheesiness of the fact that they're both TV films. I mean, hey, on a TV budget, you're very limited on what you can do, but I think in both cases they do a very good job of being memorable, lovable, and most importantly, spooky, but not terrifying. I am talking about Disney Channel's own Halloweentown and 2020's. Okay, first of all, let's tackle Halloweentown. Halloweentown is a classic. Halloweentown starring Debbie Reynolds herself as the incredible, the indelible Grandma Aggie. There are no words. She's literally one of the most iconic grandma characters in existence. Like, there is no debating this. She is absolutely incredible in these Halloweentown films. She's such a lovable grandmother type that has great interactions with her grandchildren, also at the same time being able to stand on her own ground as this powerful witch who's leading the Cromwell coven at this point. In this film, she has a daughter who is also a Cromwell witch, but her daughter wants absolutely nothing to do with the world of Halloweentown or witchcraft or magic or any of it. So she's decided to raise her children as just full humans, even though they are half witches. And that's where the story begins, where we see Grandma Agatha come visit her daughter and her grandchildren on Halloween night. Now, this happens to be the 13th Halloween that Marnie, the oldest grandchild, has experienced, and this is usually the time when she would be wrapping up her witchy training. And unfortunately, because her mother hasn't been raising her as a witch, she's missed out on a lot of that training. So when they're thrown into the world of Halloweentown, they have a lot to catch up on, a lot to learn, and hopefully they can do so just in time to save the day from an evil dark force that's lurking around. Listen, this film is cheesy as hell. It is cheesy as hell because of course it is. It's a 90s Halloween film made for television. Like, just set your standards at that level, okay? But let me tell you, it will definitely meet, if not surpass, those standards, because it just has such charm. It has such heart. Like I said, I've watched this film time and time again. Of course it has a special place in my heart. Of course I am biased, but I am telling you, the relationship between Grandma Agatha and her grandchildren is worth watching this film alone. Literally alone. It's just worth looking past the relatively cheap production design, the 90s CGI, the 90s special The 90s were a crazy time. Like, I don't know what to tell you. But when you look past all of that, what's really at the center here are the great characters and also impressive prosthetics. Okay, we have some pretty cool prosthetics work in this film. And in terms of scariness level, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. This is a family film. There's nothing really scary here. It's just full of heart. It's full of heart and magic, Cromwell magic. It's adorable. I would highly recommend you check it out if you haven't already. Like I said, this recommendation comes as a sort of double bill alongside 2020's, which is another Halloween film that I basically grew up on. Now, this film stars Tia and Tamara Mowry, who are these twin witches who finds out that the other exists, as well as finding out that their biological mother is actually this powerful witch who is the queen of this alternate magical dimension called Coventry. It's called Coventry. I find this hilarious as someone who lives in the UK. And Coventry to me was always such this mystical, magical place because of this film. When I found out it was just like some place in the middle of the country, I was so disappointed. I expected there to be witches. I expected there to be warlocks. I expected there to be twin witches. It was very much disappointing. But this is the magical place of Coventry here in this film. And this is where our story starts, where we meet these twin sisters who are reunited for the first time since their birth. Once again, when it comes to this film, the storyline itself is very cheesy. It's very Disney Channel original film. We know what we're getting ourselves into when you see that banner pop up. But at the same time, I think it stands apart from the rest once again because of the characters. The dynamic, of course, between Tia and Tamara is flawless, literally flawless. They are an iconic duo at this point. Between sister and this, no one can fault their presence on screen in the 90s and the early 2000s. Like, mwah, immaculate, okay? Then of course you have that integration of magic. I absolutely love the way that they utilize the different power sets that the sisters have, and I also love the added dynamic of the fact that they're royals. This is basically like Halloweentown meets Princess Diaries. When you put these together, it makes for the perfect film. Are you kidding me? Teenage Jean ate that shit up. It was incredible. My next recommendation actually features some of my own people. Cheers to them. I think it's better with the teeth, but I can't go through that again. Next up, we have What We Do in the Shadows. Now, I already talked about how much I love this film in my best movies of the decade video. So if you want to hear my thoughts on it, you can check that video out now. But this film is amazing. This is a mockumentary style film that takes a look at the everyday lives of vampires who have lived for hundreds and hundreds of years but are still trying to figure out the intricacies of modern day living. It is absolutely hilarious because of course it is. It both stars and is written by Jermaine Clemens and none other than Taika Waititi. The comedy here is mwah. The comedy is absolutely spectacular, and this is definitely a recommendation that I would have if you feel like laughing this Halloween. If you just want to laugh whilst at the same time taking part in the Halloween festivities, I would highly recommend you run towards this film, especially if you haven't seen it before. There's really no excuse, but if you haven't, this is the perfect time now because it is absolutely hilarious and the performances here are amazing as well. Not to mention, this film also birthed the incredibly funny, equally amazing What We Do in the Shadows FX series. I would highly recommend you check out the series as well as the film because this series is also hilarious. It does have a different cast, but the cast is equally magnetic, and the series does have that added benefit of being able to explore the different mini adventures that the vampires go through in their everyday lives as they try to understand more of the modern world, whilst also reminiscing over the good old days of their centuries-long lives. And at the same time, you also have an expansion of the universe where you explore different kinds of creatures of the night like werewolves and witches. And as my final recommendation, it should come as no surprise to any of you that I would highly recommend you check out Disney's classic family-friendly Halloween movie Hocus Pocus. This is a film that has actually recently got a whole resurgence of love due to its theatrical release in these COVID times, and I've seen the box office for this film just keep going up and up and up, which tells me that people are having a great time watching it on the big screen. But for those of you who are not up for seeing this film on the big screen, you can definitely still check it out on Disney Plus, which is what I did last night, just to kind of refresh my memory on why it is that this film is so beloved. I personally am a little too young to have watched this film when it first came out. It came out in like 1993, and I'm a child of the Twitches and Halloweentown 2 era, shall we say. So I never watched this growing up, but I did watch it most recently for the first time, and what a fun time. What a fun time. First of all, Bette Midler did that. She did wow, she was absolutely incredible. Now the other two sisters are great too. I mean, we have Sarah Jessica Parker portraying the epitome of a dumb blonde. Literally the epitome of a dumb blonde. But Bette Midler, she stole the show. She was absolutely incredible. In fact, the green is in honor of her. She was absolutely amazing. Wow. The singing, wow. The interactions with the children, wow. Now, this film, much like a lot of other Disney Halloween films, doesn't pretend to take itself too seriously, even though Bette Midler is fully committed to this role, and indeed all of the witches are. But the film itself doesn't take itself too seriously. It has some fun elements to it, some campy elements to it, which is what makes it so enjoyable and just this really nice warm little blanket to snuggle into during the Halloween season. This film, much like the other two Halloween films from Disney that I mentioned, does have a strong focus on family and the importance of holding those that you care about and love close to you. And I think that is a very relevant and important message to give, especially to children. Another thing that I could fully appreciate about Hocus Pocus is that for a change, we actually have more of an emphasis on the witches themselves, the villains of the story, as opposed to the heroes. Because in the other two examples that I gave of these Halloween family films, the heroes are very much at the center of the story. They're the focus. They are the protagonists that we follow throughout their journey. But here we have the witches taking center stage. And yes, the heroes and the protagonists of this story are significant. I mean, we do follow the story of that main male cat, what's his name, that boy, that teenage boy who like complains about his middle class suburban life for absolutely no reason. For absolutely no reason. And also he brushes off his sister, but then he learns his lesson about family and everything's okay at the end. That kid, he's important. But it's mostly about the witches, let's be real. Like, they are so incredible. They are scene stealing. Aesthetically, they're magnificent. I mean, the prosthetics, you want to talk about costume design, prosthetics, makeup, the nails. Bette Midler's nails in this film, they deserve a sequel of their own. But on the flip side of that, I would argue that as a result, the protagonists then in Twitches and in Halloweentown are so much better. They're so much more dynamic, they're so much more personable and relatable and just charismatic on screen. The protagonists in Hocus Pocus are like, they suck. Okay, so we're going to try this one more time, but that's it from me. Now that I told you guys my thoughts on the best Halloween films. That's it from me. Now that I told you guys my thoughts on the best Halloween films to check out if you're a scaredy cat like me, time for you guys to let me know what your suggestions are down in the comments below. Please be sure to subscribe to catch new videos coming up, and if you don't, we're going to have some words. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.